Hi there, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Four Fingers Deep minus the Chav, otherwise known as Nameless, who's not here today again, but that's okay.
Does that mean he's going to be jobless?
I think so.
So he's nameless, jobless, voiceless, and presentless.
And useless.
He's going to be so mad when he gets back.
Oh, he was so pissed off when I named him Chav of the Week when he missed his first show. He was so pissed. He was so pissed off. He's like, no, it's on now. And I'm like, no, man, you can't retaliate like that. That's not how this works.
That's why you will never miss a show.
That's right.
You will be here with a wheelchair.
I even told her I could
iron lung.
Walking pneumonia. You fuckers aren't going to do that to me.
That's right, but he's Chav of the Week. You're supposed to go
snap.
ding dong.
Fred just named John Chav of the Week.
But he was supposed to go ding dong.
I was busy looking something else up because remember we talked about this earlier and you'll figure it out here in a second.
I'm terrified.
Yeah, you should be. So, are we doing the OOMP stuff next time we get together?
Yes.
Yay.
How hard have you been working on your material?
Not hard enough, so I need another week. Exactly. Caveat.
Hey, check us out at bdrinfo.com.
Yeah! Dum dum.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, and where should they write, Analog Kid?
Send us feedback or comments, whatever, to
Sex toys.
Sex toys.
Dear God.
Don't choke on them, though, please.
Yes, don't choke on them. bdrinfo at bdrrocksonline.com.
We each have individual ones as well.
Yes.
Like I know mine's up and running. Like Giselle Noir at bdrrocksonline.com.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you could say they should. I believe on my profile, mine's actually listed underneath my profile. So if you want, we could just do that with everybody's profile. We could just say, hey, you can contact me here.
Yeah,
or
please.
You can contact us as a group at this particular.
Yeah.
I'd like for all three of my fans to be able to get in touch with me. Yeah.
They're in the retirement home. So
yeah, exactly.
Before they get internet access.
They're all like 85-year-old women with their husbands yelling in the background. What are you doing? Stop talking to that bastard! I'm in the room, you fat bitch! Come on!
My neighbor's gonna be like, "Why do you have? Are you okay? Because there's an angry man in your apartment. What's going on?" He called you a fat bitch. I just want to make sure you're okay. You're like, no. He was talking to the internet. Don't worry about it. He's a little senile, you know.
Yeah, he just kind of.
He doesn't know where he is right now.
He's got internet Tourette's.
Yes.
That's all it
If
is.
the internet is rocking, don't bother knocking.
That's right, buddy. Because I'll get out my hard salami.
Oh.
Well, I did bring it.
And you were folding it.
Yeah.
Well, he tried to take it out of the plastic.
No, I'm folding the famunda cheese.
No, it should always be covered.
I'm not debating that. I'm just saying.
Saying.
He took it out of the plastic.
Yeah.
Whipped it out, threw it on a plate.
Yeah.
And then he rolled it up.
And check us out at bdrrocksonline.com.
Dum dum.
Yes.
Oh man. So Analog Kid, you
found your new toy.
I was gonna say a lot of interesting news articles this week.
Good Lord. Fuck you, USA Air. There was a news article that I had posted on Facebook. There was two of them. One was the only reason why I had sent you guys the email about apparently you can't smoke on airline is because the law doesn't state, the federal law doesn't state whether or not you can or cannot.
Right.
It's USA Air's policy that they don't. And this guy didn't know about the policy. And so he was trying to grab his e-cigarette because he was suffering withdrawal, and because he became argumentative with the flight attendant who was telling him he can't do it.
That's why he got bounced.
That's why he got bounced. He became a flight risk and security risk because he was arguing about
whether or not he could smoke on
right.
In other words,
he gave, cigarette on an airplane.
He gave U.S. Air an excuse to use 9/11 as an excuse to get him off the plane.
And I called bullshit on that. I'm like, the guy, you know, I smoke. I'm just trying to wean myself off the natural cigarettes. I'm using the e-cigarette, but because it's an addictive substance, it's really not wise to fuck with somebody when they're on a nicotine withdrawal because they will beat the shit out of you. Just give them a cigarette, give them a couple drags, and move on.
Well, the other thing too is I think if the guy knew ahead of time,
it wouldn't have been an issue.
It wouldn't have been because he would have prepared himself for I'm not going to be able to smoke my electronic cigarette on the plane.
Right.
But at the same time, I mean, I guess it's just the hard way of everybody figuring out you're going to have to look at the individual policies of the airline that you're flying on before you can't just assume that because it does only release water vapor, it doesn't release carcinogens or things like that, you can't necessarily smoke it.
But yeah, and just because the flight attendant got into an argument with him, she used that as an excuse to kick him off the plane.
Yeah.
And he was arrested.
Oh.
And check us out at bdrinfo.online.com.
And then I thought the other, was it also U.S. Air? The other interesting article that you had where a woman was escorted off of a plane for taking a picture?
Yes.
After she had deleted the picture, apparently the stewardess complained to the pilot. The pilot then had her kicked off the plane.
Because it was the pilot's call at another security risk because what the flight attendant was doing was that she was being a dick to another passenger.
Yeah.
What this person did was take her cell phone, took a picture of her ID badge to make sure she had the name correctly, and she was going to report as a complaint that she was being rude to another passenger.
Yeah.
This flight attendant not only asked her to delete it, but decided to take it even further, being an asshole, and went up to the cabin and explained the situation that she's a flight risk because she's taking pictures.
Yep.
So not only was... And she's a photojournalist. That was the thing. She's a photojournalist. That's her goddamn job.
Yeah.
And they used her as a flight security risk and had her removed. She even said as she was being walked out, she says, I'm only being kicked off the plane. She was announcing this to the entire flight path. I'm being kicked off the plane because I took a picture.
Yeah. I'm glad that she did that she announced it to the rest of the passengers. Because, I mean, that's just such a douchebag thing to do.
And on the third, they come in threes.
Yeah.
On the third USA Air complaint, this is pretty much what concretely solidified my I'm never going to fly US Air if I can help it, is that there was a collegiate football player earlier this week that went on was asked to pull up his pants. He was wearing baggy pants.
Right.
He's a collegiate football star. And they told him to pull up his pants. It was like, well, no, apparently there's a dress code to fly on this plane.
Not that I'm aware of.
A week before, and I'm not saying that there's any truth to it, but apparently the reason why I'm saying this now is because of the passenger a week before. It is argued that the reason why they singled him out was because he was black. The only reason why I'm saying that, why I'm bringing that up as part of the particular issue, is a week before there was a 55, 56, 57-year-old cross-dresser that boarded the same airline from the same city, I believe it was the same city, and all he was wearing was high heels, thigh-high stockings, blue panties, or a bikini bottom, a bikini top, and was able to walk on the plane not only without being patted down, but nobody said anything about covering up. So they let him go.
But they asked somebody else
to pull up his pants. So I call bullshit on it.
Was he freeballing it? I mean, is that why they asked him to pull up his pants?
He was just basically wearing his own civilian clothes. So he was,
I'd
chilling.
imagine. I mean, when I see the baggy, pull down, like around their knees, practically pants, they usually have on brightly colored boxers. So it's not like they're flashing their dick around.
And the other thing was that I saw the feedback of other people. You can go on. This is on msnbc.com. You can go, if you sign into an account, you can actually post comments on particular articles. And more people were offended by the cross-dresser's attire, because there's a picture on the article, than they were about the collegiate football player's attire. And some of them actually stated, well, it's probably a racial thing. Oh yeah, there's no racism in
and there's no snicker at the cross-dresser either, right?
So more people were offended by the cross-dresser not covering up and being appropriately attired for a family flight company. Yeah. There were little kids on the plane, stuff like that. He's like, if you look around, most people are wearing clothes like this. Why are you singling me out?
Yeah.
So USA Air can, eat me.
And I mean, I have no problem with transsexuals, transvestites, whatever. But I mean, when you're in public places, I mean, please cover up. I mean, it's just whether it doesn't matter. if you're transvestite or, you know, or...
If your junk is popping out, it doesn't matter.
I wouldn't want to see a hot 18 or 20-year-old, you know, model in a bikini in high heels walking out just as, you know, it's just...
Hell, I would.
I would, not on a fucking airplane.
I'd be like, son,
or, you know...
That's the kind of thing I'm talking about right
Or even a hot surfer dude in a fucking Speedo. Like, no, I don't want to... It's an airplane. Put some clothes on, please.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just the point I'm trying to make. I mean, just put some clothes on.
But, you know, when it comes to acting up on a plane, there are enough examples of people being bounced for acting like an asshole. If you act like an asshole, you should be expecting to get bounced from the plane. In other words, if you're argumentative, and plus, if you throw alcohol in the equation, oh, they don't need a reason. You've passed your 2-drink limit. They know because they served them to you when they shouldn't have. Then they can just go, yep, see you later, bye-bye.
My argument with this whole particular issue is that these USA Air, TSA, a lot of these organizations that are having such bad press have let those that were behind 9/11 win. That's my argument. When you're living in that much fear, you've let them win.
Oh, exactly.
It should go back, the attitude should go back to the way it was pre 9/11, to where, you know, just be vigilant, looking for suspected, but why are you patting down grandma?
Right.
She's in a goddamn wheelchair.
Right.
There's a picture of them patting down a 2-year-old.
Yeah, like a 2-year-old's gonna sit there and fucking, you know, I'm smart enough to blow up this fucking plane, take me and everybody else with. Fuck you. You know, I'm just like, you let them win.
Say, Marge, let's stick a dynamite up little Junior's ass and take him on the plane.
You let them win, and you know what? I'm not going to spend my money on people who let them win.
Nope.
And in reference to the sex toy comment, brings me up to the chat of the week.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean US Air is in a chat of the week? I call US Air chat of the week.
Well, okay, US Air is gonna be the first chat. Here's the real chat of the week, because I found the.
Well, they can be co-chat. I mean,
yeah,
co-chat.
We can share.
I find it. How do I put this delicately?
I don't think there's a way to do it delicately. And we're not good about being delicate, so we might as well just...
Exactly.
Just fucking say it. I mean, really.
Sam Mazzola, who was a exotic animal owner in Cleveland, passed away this week.
He sure did.
Yeah. He was found dead, apparently into BDSM, for lack of a better label. With a sex toy in his throat. He apparently asphyxiated on a sex toy. There was an assistant that was with him at the time. He was on his stomach, on his bed. His arms and legs were not only handcuffed, but padlocked. And he was wearing a GIMP mask with the eyes and the mouth on the GIMP mask zipped up. So, I'm not calling him so much of the chat of the week as, you know, because of his lifestyle or the fact that he died. I was just thinking, how do you express a safe word when your shit's all zipped up and you got something in your mouth? It's the thing. It was kind of weird because I'm just reading this. There's fetishes I understand. There's fetishes I get. There's some I don't. But to each his own. Whatever floats your boat. The thing that I thought was really messed up was it was the coroner that really struck me out, where it said apparently Mazzola died from, quote, accident during sexual role play, end quote. That's the part of the news article that made me pause.
Well, there's
accident during sexual role play.
They in England they call it something death by misadventure.
Yes.
Death by misadventure.
Yes. Yeah.
That is epic.
The cause of death over there for Jim is death by misadventure.
Yeah.
Is that what they call it when they fall down the stairs? What do they call it when they fall down the stairs?
Oh, that's something else. Death by misadventure would be drinking until you...
John Bonham was, his death certificate stated that he was death by misadventure with alcohol.
Yep.
That was the cause of death.
So this would be death by misadventure via
you have
vibrator?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, actually, it didn't specify what kind of
It didn't
sex toy it
specify
was.
what
It
kind
just
of
said
sex
sex toy,
toy.
so
Which leads us to run with the imagination.
death by misadventure by sex would be how it would be described.
He also said that the coroner also said it was an unattended death, not unintended, unattended.
I mean, there was nobody in the room.
There was nobody in the room when it happened, but there was an assistant that helped him get all. I'm like, well, what? Did
Dressed up?
Coffee?
Yeah. Is there an egg timer? Like what?
Yeah, exactly.
How do you know to check on him?
It's so yeah, but this is the second time Zola was in the news because in August last year, one of his exotic animals had mauled one of the employees to death.
Ouch.
Maybe that was the employee coming back and going, "Gotcha."
The death was ruled a workplace accident for the bear that mauled the employee, and the bear was euthanized. That's where I got an issue with.
Well,
it's a wild fucking animal.
Then you should euthanize the assistant that wasn't there.
Yeah, exactly. But yes,
what do you expect by putting an animal in a cage? A wild animal in a cage.
Thank you.
But the headline was
Especially
owner of killer bear chokes to death on sex toy. And check us out on bdrrocksonline.com. And Cal, you fucking started it. So I wouldn't say necessarily that it was Jab of the Week. I just thought that the whole article would be classified as there because it was I can't tell if this article was worded this way on purpose or not. It's just I look at certain articles going, I wonder if they were really thinking when they made that, or were they thinking? Because I mean, literally, when I saw the article, I was like, oh, I got to read this. So it was the silliness of the entire article that I thought was chatty.
Mm-hmm.
But it would have been epic. It would have been epic if the death of the.
Clearly, there was no bush involved.
Yeah, apparently there was no bush involved.
If it was, it was zipper tight.
Blame it on Bush, not on that one, huh?
They also didn't specify if the assistant was male or female. But it would have been great if the death was ruled a workplace accident.
Yeah, I mean, if that was his dungeon, so to speak. But they didn't say so.
It says no one's been charged in the death, but the death was also not labeled as suspicious.
Aha.
Toys and bears.
Well, I think it's really.
Oh my!
I think it's really suspicious when you. Never mind. Alrighty. And so.
But I think you mentioned the website thing, and you can thank Calvi and folding your meat.
As I fold it gently, and cheese on top.
Indeed.
I'm laughing because I listened to Tenacious D's "Fuck Her Gently" earlier today too. That's a great song.
I'll have to check that one out.
It's hilarious. But what was I saying? I got distracted.
Folding your meat. And...
No, before that. Oh yeah, Cal. Okay, so the whole website thing you mentioned, feedback, whatever. It just goes to show that we actually read feedback from our fans.
Yes.
And try to implement them as best way possible.
Indeed.
Unless it's stupid, then we're just like, fuck you. Exactly.
And yes, exactly. And we take seriously the constructive stuff that we get.
Not all the time.
Well, that's true.
Sometimes we're just like, whatever, I do what I want.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, us.
So
Hey!
I mean, technically, we're here to entertain you people, and he's gonna sit there. Hey, plug the website more. You already know what the fucking website is.
Aren't you there?
Fine. All right, I got this. As soon as I read that email, I'm like, oh, okay.
What's hilarious is I read it before you did, and I thought the same thing. But then we collaborated and came up with the idea of an egg timer. Is it an egg timer?
It's actually the online clock that we use at work.
The little stopwatch.
Yeah, a little stopwatch.
I wanted a little egg timer that was shaped like a chicken.
But I couldn't find it. I knew we had it somewhere, but my wife had left early to go pick up one of the kids earlier today, and I forgot to ask her last night because we didn't get home at 11:30. Which by the way,
that's because you got to see the new Harry Potter film.
It was okay.
Did you play with his wand?
Or
the point where
did
he
he?
broke it.
Oh no.
Because if you read the book, remember it broke.
He broke his
The books,
bone.
the books were better. It's not the book.
I mean, and that's the thing to remember. A lot of people complain about films that are made from literature pieces. There's some that are done well. There are some that are done horribly. It's just you have to. What to keep in mind is, it's not the book. It's a visual representation of something that because when you read stories, you get ideas in your mind of what the characters look like, what they what their personalities are like, what the scenery looks like. It's not. And it's so individualized when you read the stories, you can't capture everybody's ideas on the screen.
Well, it's not so much the ideas that were on the screen that I had an issue with. You and I have talked about this before in other films. I had a problem with the first X-Men film.
Mm-hmm.
I understand the argument that Hollywood was saying, you can't cram 30 years in a 2-hour film. No, that's why you make a series of films. But within the first half hour, when Wolverine finally goes up to meet Professor Xavier, and Professor Xavier says that you were attacked by Sabretooth, and the next line out of Hugh Jackman's mouth was, "Who's Sabretooth?" I was done. Because for 30 plus years, there was the rumor that Sabretooth and Wolverine were father and son.
I thought they were brothers.
There was no brother. So when they went to Origins, there was supposed to be a brother?
Yeah.
No. Wolverine was a single, to the point that we know of in the canon, is a single child.
Okay.
Wolverine and Sabretooth.
See, that's where I got confused, because I always, what little I had read in comics from the X-Men series, I had always thought that Wolverine was a single child, and then all of a sudden they're introducing relatives and things like that, and I'm just like, what?
The things that, plus not only that, is that Sabretooth and Wolverine were part of the same experiment at different times.
Yes.
So part of the drawback of the experiment was that a lot of their memory, long-term memory, was wiped. Mm-hmm. So even Sabretooth was under the impression that Wolverine might have been his kid.
Yeah.
So for like 30 plus years, people have been, on to that. You didn't find out until probably late 90s that wasn't the case. That they were just two soldiers. Mm-hmm. They were part of the same experiment and just went horribly wrong in various aspects. So you had to wait till like 98, 97, 98 to find that out. And so I got really irritated with a lot of the way the dialogue was written. With the Harry Potter books, one of my issues was that my favorite book was the fourth book, The Goblet of Fire. Mm-hmm. It was about that thick. It is the thickest story, the thickest book in the series. And I loved it.
He likes them thick.
I like them thick.
I beat you to it, Fred. Ha
in the book, you got to see the Quidditch World Cup.
Right.
Like the first 2 or 3 chapters. It was the Quidditch World Cup.
I think even in the Lego Harry Potter game, you get to see the Quidditch World Cup.
So when you get to the movie, you get to see right before the cup, and then right after. You never actually saw the game.
But is it where in the
my
game?
rebuttal was to that specific thing was, do we have the technology to really do it justice? Because there was one Quidditch game they had in one of the movies, and CGI wasn't.
I got 4 words for you. I got 4 words for you.
What?
Lord of the Rings.
Hey, I'm just.
If they'd gotten Peter Jackson
I'm
to do the
just
Harry
trying to
Potter
play devil's
films,
advocate.
it would have been fucking epic.
But you mentioned about the X-Men films, and you mentioned the 30 years. And from what little I remember from when the X-Men films were originally released was there was, as far as the storyline. Hate you. But anyways, as far as the storyline goes for the films, from my understanding, there was it was difficult because apparently it wasn't just 30 years of a comic story. There were so many different
Character developments?
Not characters, but it was like so many different versions of the story.
Right.
Because there was all these different comic books that were released. There was like the X-Men, and then there was just the one that was just all about Wolverine, and then there was the other one where it's
you had your one-offs with Wolverine doing his own solo things. He had his own solo title.
Yeah.
Then you had the Uncanny X-Men, and then you had just the regular X-Men, and then I think there was like 4 or 5 titles.
And then I grew up with the cartoon, which is amazing. Which
cartoon.
I gotta watch it again because it was amazing when I was like 8, but. Nowadays,
but the thing that
I might watch it and go, oh, what the
other issue that I had was that the Phoenix never killed Professor Xavier. Mm-hmm. And Magneto actually removed the adamantium from Wolverine in X-Men 325, I think. Mm-hmm. And so you come to find out in the canon, the Wolverine always had claws.
Oh.
They kind of touched that on Origin,
Right.
where they were bone.
Yeah.
But Wolverine didn't know that because of the whole experiment that gone wrong with his mental facilities until after Magneto had pulled it out of his body. And then so Wolverine, for the longest time, was going on without the adamantium. And I think there was an actual, I think there was a story arc where they were going to actually put it back in.
Oh.
I'm not sure. I stopped reading comic books after my first marriage. It was getting massively too expensive. And now that I'm thinking about going back into it, it's actually 4 times as expensive as when I left.
Yeah, that's one reason why I love comic books, but I just not able to get into them. I mean, that and the comic books that I want are not easily available.
Yeah.
Like I would love to have the Dog Witch series to own. It is a great. I've read it because I had a friend that had the full fucking series.
Yeah.
Amazing story, series, art, everything. But yeah, I was looking to try to get copies of it, and it was not cheap. And I was just like, damn it.
Well,
I don't even need a first edition. Like, I'm good with like printing 10 or 12 or 100 or whatever.
Yeah.
I just want a copy of it.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I was a big fan of Kid Eternity from the DC Vertigo series, and check us out at bdrrocks.com. I'm gonna be a dick about this, but I understand.
It's the only way.
I was really hardcore to Death's Head, which was basically about a robot bounty hunter. He quote unquote died and took over the personality of Minion, and it became Death's Head 2. Then there was a British subcompany of Marvel that came out with Death's Head 3.0 back in the late 90s. I can't find him anywhere.
New and improved Death's Head.
Yeah. And he was basically a cyborg version of
Calby, Christmas present? What are you talking about?
Death's Head. He's a cyborg version of Deadpool. He's got a smart-ass mouth. And the whole time you're reading it, you're thinking he's speaking in a British accent. It's just because of the way he does it. There was a crossover with the Fantastic Four X-Men, which was basically how he went from Death's Head. It was a bridge to gap between Death's Head 1 and Death's Head 2. Then there's the Incomplete Death's Head, which was basically a bunch of back file stories on a lot of the story gaps. And there's a Death's Head journal, which basically did a lot of the same thing. I was really into that series. Another version of this particular discussion is that they're talking about, and Ron Howard was actually going to pilot this until he just recently walked away from it. They were going to make The Dark Tower by Stephen King into 3 films and a miniseries. And I am screaming no.
Yeah, even I gotta say no on that one.
They will destroy it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's 35 years of writing, but it's 7 books.
Yeah, and they're all this big or something.
And I've started.
Yeah, they're huge books.
I've started reading they actually, I don't know if they've done all of the books, but they've started making a comic version of The Dark Tower.
It's not quite a prequel. Okay, by the time there's.
Because I've got book 1 of that, and I'm like, I need the other books.
The first one is called The Gunslinger.
Yes.
The second one is called the Drawing of the Three. And the third one is called The Wastelands. When you get to book 4, which, by the way, I think is the best book out of all 7, it's called Wizard and Glass. And it talks about where Roland and his band are about to go...
Freddy's giving a dinosaur head.
Yes, I am.
They're about to go beyond Endworld into Midworld.
Right.
And he has to tell a story to explain a couple things to his band, and it takes him back to when he was about 14, 15.
It's a story.
Within a story.
Yeah.
Wheels within wheels.
Yeah.
Inception, oh my god.
And the comic book you're talking about takes place right after his event as a 15-year-old.
Yes.
So it's a story. It's technically a story within a story.
Yeah, because it
having
starts...
an event. Oh, God.
Yeah, because it starts with his battle to become essentially a man within the camp, and then to go out and everything.
And then he came back from Hanbury, and he's having to deal because he killed his mother. You come to find out his mom. So it takes place around that time.
Spoiler alert, by the way.
Very few people have ever heard of the Dark Tower. I mean, Stephen King even states he goes into his conventions where he's doing his book signing, and he always starts it out. He goes, "Well, show of hands, how many of you have heard of me and my books?" And everybody raises their hand. And he says, "Of those raising your hands, keep them up if you've heard of the Dark Tower." And usually, within a group of 100, maybe 5 to 10 keep their hands up.
What?
It is the greatest story arc I have ever read.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically his Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Because when he came out of college, everybody was trying to write their own version of Lord of the Rings. They wanted their own Lord of the Rings. And a lot of authors compared their epic novels to the Lord of the Rings. And I think Stephen King did it. Mm-hmm. I will say it's his opus magnus. I will say it's his Lord of the Rings. Because it's a very well done story. I hated the way he ended it. And he did it as a person.
But he gave it an ending.
Was it happy?
Actually, no, he did not.
Oh.
He did not. I've been waiting. I started reading The Gunslinger. Oh, shit. I was probably about 14 when I read The Gunslinger. And The Gunslinger was originally published in 78. Mm-hmm. And when I finally got my hands on it, I was 14. And I get to book 3. I literally had to wait 10 years from book 4. I was so pissed. And then before he finishes 6 and 7, he has that car accident.
No.
And the first news article was he died. And then they retracted it, and he was okay. Oh, he was in critical condition. When I saw he's dead, no! Not like this! But it's the same thing with like Robert Jordan. Before he finished the Wheel of Time series, mm-hmm. he died. So they actually had a ghostwriter come in.
This is part of the wheel. I'm dead.
He had a ghostwriter come in that was given the blessing by his widow to finish the story because everybody was so upset that not only he died, but the story wouldn't have finished. And there are massive fans of the Wheel of Time series. Yeah. Massive fans. But when I saw that, I was like, oh, no! What the? And I was
not like this. Not Ron Howard.
Literally having a fit. And then they came back the next day and said that his reports of his death were untrue. He was actually in critical condition.
Oh,
so about 8 months into it,
the movie thing.
He said, I was having writer's block. I don't know if I can finish The Dark Tower. I was like, no! I'd rather you be dead than have writer's block. Because then you have an excuse.
Go die!
So, but he finally finished it, and the way he finished it was a direct fuck you to some of us who have been waiting. And he didn't do it to be a dick. He did it. He did it for his own balls. He did it for his own personal reasons because he got to the point where he had a love-hate relationship with his readers because he's like, you guys expect the story to continue or expect an ending. And I'm like, Steve, you may have started out your passion for you, but you created fans. And the fans pay your bills. So you went from writing for yourself to writing for your fans.
I think too, it's just with any kind of art, it's
you do it for
yourself.
Yes.
But when you commercialize it, when you market it, you have to understand that there's other people that are going to look at it, going to want it, going to read it, going to listen to it, going to look at it, going to want it in museums. I mean, not that you need to have them dictate or influence what art you continue to create, but you have to keep in mind there's somebody else that's going to look at it and they're going to have their own opinion about it. Yes. I mean, that's one thing you can never get. I mean, everybody's going to have an opinion. Yeah. And one thing that I've learned from the day job is you can't please everybody. No. And if you don't know that already, know it now. I mean, going into this, I was kind of like, oh, well, what if we upset people or what if we do that? At this point, I'm just like, they're going to complain. No matter what we do, no matter what we say, they're never going to be pleased, especially since we're releasing this on the internet. I mean, come on. Internet trolls are just rampant. Mm-hmm. So, then people are going to be dicks just to be dicks.
Don't worry about the 5%. Worry about the 95 that loves.
Exactly.
So that's how
But Fred, I cut you off like 5 times.
No. You know, I was actually, that's why I stopped, because I didn't want to come. Exactly. And, but that's, I like the way, I would, when it comes to artists, I like the ones that make, yeah, but I like the ones that make their turns and their, you know, what they do based on what they are interested in, because then what they're doing, they're passionate about, even if you're like, why did you go that way?
Well, we've had this discussion with Limp Bizkit. I liked Results May Vary, and it was very aptly titled because it had mixed reviews. It was more of a mature way of how they approached the music. It was more of a, for lack of a better word, it was a concept album, but really wasn't a true concept album. It was just a different area that they decided to go with. I loved the album. It was one of the worst selling albums they ever did because everybody was expecting another Chocolate Starfish. When they came out with Gold Cobra, I was like, okay, there's like 3 or 4 songs on here I like. I don't like the album as a whole. But as of the, I don't mind if they explore. I actually encourage a band to explore, but not the way Metallica did it.
Right.
They went about it
to
the
me.
wrong
Well,
way.
there's a difference between.
What?
Wait, who's first? No, okay, wait, I got a couple of points. Oh. right now.
That was a bit of miming the audience could.
Yeah, I know, right? Talking about fucking with the
Right.
audience. They're gonna be like, they're chewing on crackers and they're miming. Come on now. But what was I gonna say? Oh, so rewind. Harry Potter movies. I feel like the way that they attempted the storyline in the films.
And check this out, BDRRocks.online.com.
See, I was gonna do it, but you had to be a dick and steal my thunder.
Okay, I will let you do it next
No, the moment's gone. The moment's gone. But I actually stopped getting excited about the Harry Potter films because after I think it was film 3, and the way that they chose to do the story on the film was opposed to the story in the book, I just didn't particularly care for it. So I kind of felt like they were taking it in a. It just.
Well,
it wasn't my thing. I mean, like, I appreciate them for what they are. I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
But I got bored.
My favorite characters out of the Harry Potter films were the Weasley twins, and I didn't think they got enough screen time.
Yeah.
Because they always made me laugh.
And then let's see, what was the other point we were gonna make? So we talked about, okay, we got Harry Potter films, X-Men, comic books. What were we just talking about before? Oh, Metallica. So you've been talking a lot about. I really like the Black Album. I grew up with it as a teenager. I played the hell out of that album.
Most of them did.
And I kind of knew about the earlier stuff, but your argument is always it's an okay album. It's really not their best. Their best is before the Black Album.
Yeah.
And I had known that they actually had the guy that produced Dr. Feelgood, I believe it was.
Oh, Bob Rock?
Bob Rock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was the one that they brought in to produce the Black Album.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I was actually listening to, it was a combination of their old stuff and then the Black Album was thrown in. So the stuff before the Black Album and then the Black Album. And there's a major difference that I'm able to hear now. And it's not that it's a bad difference, but it's they slow down, and then I could hear in the production they tune down the guitars because I felt like in the older albums the guitars were just like in your face. They were louder than the vocals in some points, and then with the Black Album they switched it so the vocals were louder. I mean, they still had hard guitars, but they really, I felt like they just slowed down.
I think,
and that's not a bad thing.
No.
I mean, like I said, I still enjoy the Black Album. It's just I feel like looking at their contemporary works and the works that they released after the Black Album, they just tried to make another Black Album.
They did.
and now when you think about that, think about their, who I would have to say, after being educated by the Analog Kid, their major contemporary had, well, they really have two, but their major contemporary, being Iron Maiden, has, they've aged while they're making their music, just like the guys in Metallica have, but they've stayed this metal course without the King Arthur haircuts and the armbands that used to drive me nuts watching whenever I
This is Spinal Tap.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, there are metal bands that look like that,
Yeah,
and you can sit there and look at them, and they're doing the back and forth thing with their King Arthur haircuts, and I'm like, please.
See, what a lot of people don't understand is that Spinal Tap was supposed to be parodying those, or mocking.
No,
those
but I'm
you're
saying
talking
that
about.
there are actually
Yeah, I know.
bands that are like that.
I know.
But anyway, getting back to the other, you have their major contemporaries that went straight down this path,
Right.
which metal fans more than any other
expect you to stay on this metal path and don't you go anywhere.
But I mean, experiment, but don't go too far away from the main heart of it.
Right, but I mean, the guys in Maiden have slowed down, and their latest does have the metal sound to it, but to me it's more really good heavy-duty rock than it is a metal album. But I'm fine with that because I love the sound of that particular album is terrific. Just what I've heard, and but then you see a band like Metallica, and they're like, well, having Marianne Faithfull in that one song I thought was good because her voice is so ragged from all of the abuse that she's done to herself that it fits there.
Yeah.
But then they're talking about making an album with Lou Reed, and I'm like, what the fuck are you people doing?
Yeah.
You know, and it's not, I mean, they, more than any other band, since they've already veered this way and that, they can get away with it.
Yeah.
And they will. But when you look at it, you're like, okay, well, if I have that in my Metallica collection, and then I have all this other stuff, it doesn't match.
Yeah.
You know, and if I'm gonna make a CD for myself,
well, it's like
it's different. I'll put it to you this way: you have a guy, okay, in a different genre. You have Mr. Plant, who started off sounding like Tom Jones on acid, and now he sounds like an older guy who doesn't want to yell anymore, doesn't want to be a front man, but he's in his 60s, he's around 60, you know, so that's okay. And he's made this progression from Tom Jones on acid to the rock god frontman, you know, to now he likes to be part of an ensemble and he wants other people to have their piece of the tune as well as him, and he wants to promote them just like he promotes himself. And that's a natural progression. But what Metallica did was take I don't know which, but they went this way or that way instead of continuing down straight. And it didn't make any sense, because what it did was, I think we were talking about this before, it brings in mommy and the 8-year-olds with their load shirts sitting in the front row, and James goes, so fucking what? And, you know, completely blows away the kids who had no idea, because all they listen to what's on the radio, you know.
When it came to Metallica, I always thought that Puppets was the best album.
Yeah, well,
followed by Justice.
Yeah.
And then followed by Ride the Lightning.
Yeah.
There's only 2 songs I really like on the Black Album, and that was Enter Sandman, and that was Don't Tread on Me. Those are the only 2 songs on that entire album I liked.
The ones that got the airplay were Enter Sandman and Unforgiven. And the guitar solo in that I liked. It just, you know, looking at it in hindsight, I'm looking at that going, okay, that's when they're beginning to veer the wrong way, because, you know, some idiot in the record industry said, hey, let Bob produce your album, and then he completely, thoroughly fucking ruined them.
Did Bob continue to produce that?
Oh, yeah!
Bob Rock produced all the way up to Death Magnetic.
I think that's where the problem sets in.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And you know who produced Death Magnetic? Rick Rubin.
Rick Rubin's also responsible for producing all the
Beastie
Boy albums.
Oh.
As far as Load was concerned, the only songs that I really liked on Load was
Slither.
No, that was off of Reload. Mama Said was pretty much the only song I actually really liked off that album.
And that is a country song.
Yeah, I like the Outlaw Torn. I did like that one.
Yeah.
But when it came to Reload, Slither, Bad Seed. I did like Fuel. I hated The Memory Remains. I hated Devil's Dance. I did not see the necessity of doing an Unforgiven 2, let alone a third one.
Yeah.
They did 3 of those?
They did 3 Unforgiven songs.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Didn't Care for Better Than You. Carpe Diem Baby was a stupid fucking song. Prince Charming was stupid. Fixer was stupid. I just didn't care. But, and I'm probably going to commit blasphemy by a lot of Metallica heads out there, I thought Megadeth was a better band. Have been since
Why
the start.
can't you wait?
Can't I wait to what?
Because Kyle said that he has a big discussion going on in England right
Oh,
now.
no, that's fine. I was just going to throw that out there. Was that I thought Megadeth was a
I thought you were about to start this discussion. I'm like,
no.
Bloody old England's gonna give us some little tiddly bits.
I'm going to wait till the tiddly bits,
okay.
the dangly bits.
No.
But what I was going to say was that I
really
agreed
gentle.
with Dave Mustaine on the assessment between Megadeth and Metallica. The Metallica got the prestige, but Megadeth was a better band, which I agree with. They had a better sound. They had better the tightness of the compositions and everything in the albums. Saint Anger, a piece of shit album.
Yep.
Cool. Baller fucking name.
Did y'all say it had a baller album cover?
Saint Anger? Hell
Yeah.
no. Stupid album cover.
Then what was the one that you were all like, blah, 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 best album cover, worst album? You were talking about Metallica.
Was I talking about Metallica?
Yeah.
I don't remember. I don't remember the conversation.
I'm going to laugh if I go back and listen to the old shows.
Probably.
And you were like, Saint Anger, best album cover and the worst album ever. And I'll be like, in your face.
Death Magnetic?
The second one is
In your mouth.
Thirds in your eye.
I really didn't care for the album.
I love
That's pretty good,
the
eh?
delay.
I really did not care for the album.
What?
Death Magnetic. Really didn't care.
No, and it's because if it had come as a natural progression after the Black Album, you'd have gone, oh, well, that's kind of in the direction they're going. But what happened was, instead,
What had happened was,
it went this way, and then it went that way, and then they're doing a best hits with the guys from Skinnerd, and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah. As far as the last recording Metallica has ever released that I actually thought was pretty decent was S&M.
But you know, that one, when I listened to it, and you know, I listened to it and I said, okay, well, there's some that you could arguably do with an orchestra, but Master of Puppets just isn't fucking one of them.
No.
And they did it anyway, and I applaud them for trying, I suppose.
I mean,
but-
if you were a fan of that concert and they didn't play Master of Puppets, would you not be mad?
Yeah, well, you know, exactly. But then, you know, you go, like, for instance, and then I went to see them, we went to see them in 1998, and there was this backstage thing before the show, and then we watched the show, and they did an acoustic portion of their set. And that's also something that, I'm sorry, that kind of music just doesn't lend itself to being acoustic, because its whole, you know, in my opinion, the punch behind that music doesn't happen when you sit there with your, you know, your acoustic guitars, and you're not, you know, pushed by all that wall of sound. No, Phil Spector, I wasn't talking about yours, you scumbag. Oh yeah, you know who I'm talking about? He was a producer in the 60s for acts like Ike and Tina Turner. He produced Let It Be, actually, by the Beatles. And the whole time, he was an abusive asshole with women.
Uh-huh.
Well, I forget exactly what year this was, but he murdered a woman that came over to his house, and they apparently tried to go after him for it and couldn't for some reason, and then finally they got him and convicted him, and he's in jail.
At least he's in jail.
Exactly. But anyway, you get that wall of metal sound, you know, and
Sorry. Okay, you were just breathing heavy and folding your meat like it was origami.
he was breathing heavy and folding his meat. Oh
and then you put
god.
a cheese and a Triscuit.
Yeah.
Then he popped the whole thing in his mouth.
that second one went in his mouth.
It did. It did.
And but yeah, I just don't see. I know they have to compose them initially that way when they're thinking about them in their head, but when they do that and they make the song and they have this epic sound to it, and then they go, "Oh, hang on, audience, we're just going to play Master of Puppets on the acoustical guitar," and I'm like, "No, you fucking don't."
The acoustical guitar.
Yeah, the acoustical.
As opposed to the electrical one, we got an acoustical one.
Yeah, the
Oh.
acousticals are very good in here, by the way.
So since we're on the topic of music,
Yes.
how much longer do we have to break?
About 10 minutes. Well, we should probably, you know what? Should we just take a break now and then
Yeah.
pick it up when we come back?
So yeah, so check us out at brxonline.com.
Ding, 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 ding! Ow, God, that hurt my ears.
I'm sorry.
That will never get old, by the way.
It won't.
Yeah.
We're going to run it into the ground, but...
We'll have a blast doing it. And, as, we were going to talk about,
Music?
well, yeah.
Well, that's what we ended on.
Oh, yeah.
Music and movies.
Well, if you want to continue along the movie thing we were on, I think, for me anyway, the scariest horror movie I can think of, and I would venture to say people my age would probably tell you the same thing, was The Exorcist. Because, you know, here you have this, this gorgeous little girl, and she starts going, "Let me," and speak,
The flower's mine.
yeah. "Look what I do with a crucifix, you bastard!"
Did you see the remastered version?
No.
It actually made it more terrifying.
Really?
Yes. There was some things that...
I don't know how they coached her into doing that, let alone, I mean, you can get a kid to mouth cuss words, like go, "Hey, Linda, go like this."
Yeah.
And then she'll say that, and then you can record the actual what
If I'm not mistaken, I actually think that was Linda's voice, too.
No, it was Mercedes McCambridge.
Doom, doom.
I pulled that one out of my ass.
Exorcist is a great film. I
The
gotta admit that.
remastered version is better.
Wow.
Which is the version that had her crawling backwards down the stairs?
That's the remastered version.
Ooh.
What's interesting is, I think it's called Ju-on, which is the Asian, the Japanese version of The Grudge. Of The Ring? I thought it was the...
Ju-on, I think, is the ring.
No, Ringu is The Ring.
Ring.
Ju-on,
Oh, yeah, that's right. You're right. I'm
Ju-on
sorry.
is the Grudge.
Yes.
But no, they had that similar walking backwards down the stairs. And it was, I was like, whoa.
And that was the thing about The
It's
Grudge,
still
that was-
creepy. I
The
mean,
thing about the
even
Grudge
though
was-
I study dance and I know how they're doing it, I know how I can do it myself.
Yeah.
Wow.
I see it and I'm just like, oh, that's
And
creepy.
you're still scared.
I'm not scared. I'm just like, oh, that's kind of creepy. My skin just kind of crawled a little bit.
I watched the Japanese
Threw up a little
version.
in my mouth.
And when I speak Japanese version versus English version, I'm not just saying that A, one was better, or B, this is the American version.
There's
versus the
two
original.
different films.
Right. But generally, some of the latest horror films you're watching were originally done in Japan.
Yes.
For example, The Grudge was released first in Japan because they literally believe that bullshit. The Grudge is the American version, but it's done with the same director.
Really?
Yes, it was the same director who did the American version.
Huh. That is bad. I did not know that. I now have a little more appreciation for the American version of The Grudge.
What made
I
The
was
Grudge
like, fuck
creepy
that.
to me was I had this is why I love DVDs and Blu-ray. It's all the behind-the-scenes stuff. I love movie magic just as much as I love the movies. What I thought was interesting was when I first watched the film. I watched the film first before I watched the film with the commentary or the behind-the-scenes stuff. What I liked about The Grudge was the ghost of the wife.
Mm-hmm.
It was the way her face looked. It was very creepy. It was very horrific. It would have scared me had it been real.
Mm-hmm.
What made it even more disturbing is that if you watch the behind the scenes stuff, she's one of the nicest people you could ever talk to.
Aww.
She was smiling and giggling, carrying on a conversation. Very nice person.
Mm-hmm.
So that to me shows how great an actor or actress can be.
Yeah.
Is that they will scare the shit out of you. What made
Or how great the director is for bringing that out in that person.
The whole noise that she made also added to the terrifying element of the film. What I liked about The Ring, with the American version, was the special effect of her coming through the television.
Yeah.
I also noticed that when I was watching both the English and the Japanese version was when you saw the video that you had to watch, and then you get the telephone call.
Yeah.
I'm watching the video going, somebody's a Trent Reznor fan. Because every time I saw it, I thought of a Nine Inch Nails video.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting.
I think what I thought was so interesting with the way that I haven't seen the American version of The Grudge, but what I thought was interesting of the American version of The Ring was how they adapted it to, like they put it in, it was an American ghost. They made it, and it was an American town. It was an American well. It was that was what I thought was fascinating. It was the way that they chose to adapt it. And you mentioned how the Japanese films, they're different because they actually believe in the ghosts or whatever. The superstitions. I mean, the culture is completely different. I think that's why a lot of people don't quote unquote get certain films that come from Japan, that come from Thailand, from Taiwan, from South Korea, is because they don't want to take the time to go and be like, oh, well, in their culture, they actually believe this.
Right.
And, like, for example, I took a horror film, a class that was specifically on horror films. Like, we watched, Nosferatu, Psycho, the original Psycho, The Exorcist. I mean, one of the films was a film from Japan called Suicide Club.
Yes.
A lot of people don't get it. They don't understand why the children are, where they are in the film. The whole idea of reincarnation that is produced in there, they don't get it because that's part of the culture. So if you were in the Japanese culture, you would be like, oh, I get it, and it gets a deeper meaning. But if you're just in America that doesn't want to look at anything like that, you're not going to understand the film, even if you watch it 5 times. Well, like, I had to go online and look it up because I was like, I don't get, what am I missing?
Right.
I don't get it.
That's one of the reasons why I liked, and I would never have heard of this film had I not watched the Maniacs documentary that was narrated by Robert Englund. I watched The Ugly.
Not the good and the bad?
No, not the good and the bad.
Dun-dun.
He's, in The Ugly, the character Simon thinks that he is horrifically scarred when he's actually not. And every time that the Ugly appear, all you see is this black ink across their faces. And these entities tell him to kill. So every time he kills someone, he sees black blood.
Interesting.
Until he gets to the end. And his last victim has red blood, and he's cured.
Huh.
That was the premise of the film. And a lot of people, I used to work in a video store, I was like, I pimped the movie out, you gotta watch this film, you gotta watch this film. And they did the same thing, like the same people that came back with this film and didn't get it were the same people who came back with the Blair Witch Project. I'm like, you have to pay attention to the dialogue of the Blair Witch Project, and the movie will make more sense, especially the ending. Because a lot of people are like, I didn't understand the ending. Well, you didn't pay attention to the first 15 minutes of dialogue, where they interviewed the old man. And said about this house, it was up in the woods. So they took it back. I gave them a free day rental. They took it back. They brought it back and said, had you not given that suggestion, I would have hated this film. So they did the same thing with The Ugly. A lot of people that I told to watch this film loved it after they understood it. But it was one of those little subtle things. And I'm horrible. I would be a horrible critic when it comes to films because I would literally rip them apart. Because I look for the little things. I look for the little nuances and the subtleties that they put into it because that's what makes for a good writer, is the subtleties.
It makes for a good film as well. I can't stand contemporary American films are all about giving you everything. They want to tell you everything. They want to make it so easy. I hate watching a film and 30 minutes in, I know how it ends.
Exactly.
It pisses me off to no end because they make it as stupid as can be. Because that way they think, oh, well, we'll get as many people as possible to come see this film.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was one of the dumbasses.
I can't stand it.
I was one of the dumbasses that didn't realize that Bruce Willis was dead in The Sixth Sense. I was so wrapped up in the story, so wrapped up in Cole, I didn't realize it.
I didn't either. Well, I was also a lot younger when
I was also one of the dumbasses that didn't realize it was Kevin Spacey at the end, until the very end of The Usual Suspects.
Yeah, that one fucked me up too.
When he stopped,
I ain't gonna lie.
When he stopped limping, I was like,
oh shit.
I feel anally violated now. Oh my god.
When he stopped limping, I was like, shit just got real.
And I was just like, well, fuck. And I have friends who I made watch this film, and half of them knew exactly what happened within the first 30 minutes, and they pissed me off. I'm not dense. I'm not dull. I'm a pretty sharp guy. And
hello, Radioland.
I love watching a film, and then I'm so engrossed in the film that I love the endings you don't see coming. Especially when they're happy. So when they're like halfway through the film, oh, it's this, and this, and that's why. I'm like, fuck you! I sat through 2 hours of this and didn't get to the last. Oh shit, that's what happened. And so.
When I watch a movie, I like to be taken from point A to point B without sitting there trying to analyze it. But if it's so dumbed down that you can figure it out the way Giselle was just talking
What were you
about.
looking for?
Okay, I have something to say before this done.
No, but anyway, if it's so
Yes,
dumbed
yes.
down like that, then I'm not interested.
Okay, so perfect example. I talked about the horror film class. Nosferatu, Psycho, The Exorcist, Suicide Club, Dawn of the Dead, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, all the classic horror films.
Oh, yeah.
One of them in there was a more, I mentioned Suicide Club, which was a more contemporary Japanese film.
Mm-hmm.
Another one that we had watched was High Tension, which is a more contemporary
Yes.
French film.
Yes.
Do you know how mad I was? I'm in this horror film class, and it pissed everybody off because, and I'm, spoiler alert, in the beginning, when they're interviewing her, it's like the first fucking scene. And and I didn't catch the little red light in the background. I didn't catch that was a record thing.
Mm-hmm.
That messed me up. But when she said, it's like she was talking about the dream she was having, and she says the line, "I was chasing myself." I knew. I was like, we all knew. We were like, she's the killer. She's gonna kill everybody. I knew it.
But it fucked me up because she looked at
I
herself.
was so mad. I wanted to stab someone.
It
I watched it in the English version. I watched it in French, and it's the same fucking title. It's the same fucking line, and I'm like, you just gave it away.
What fucked me up about that
Gave it
film
away, you asshole.
was she thought of herself as a man when she
Yes.
killed. So when she's got the severed head going down on herself in the truck,
Yeah.
I'm going, what?
Yeah. No. I mean, it was a great. That's why it made me so mad that it gave it away in the beginning because
Yeah,
it
she
was
severed
such a
off one
great
of her victims'
film.
heads, and you see he's in the pickup truck. Her killer persona,
Is
with the
male.
severed head, giving herself a blowjob. And later in the film, about a half hour into the film, she's visiting with a friend who you come to find out later that she's in love with, and she's masturbating as herself.
Mm-hmm.
So that threw you off.
Yeah.
Where, okay, it's a guy that's chasing. So every time it's from her perspective, when she's about to kill somebody, it's a guy.
Mhm.
And he's a middle-aged, like late 40s,
Yeah.
big, bulky, ugly-looking motherfucker. So she looked at herself as it's kind of like, I guarantee you the guys that created that film had watched Raising Cain, which is a great John Lithgow film.
I gotta look at
Raising Cain, great John Lithgow film. It delves with the split personalities that were purposely given to him, and one of them is the killer, which is a badass version of what John Lithgow would look like. He's got sunglasses. He's always got the right smart-ass thing to say. John Lithgow sees his wife cheating on him, and he's looking, and then all of a sudden you see John Lithgow again, all suave and debonair, smoking a cigarette. And he looks over at his good self. He goes, "Dude, go find your own show." And John Lithgow goes, "That's my wife." And the bad side goes, "Really? No shit." And he keeps looking. So it was great the way they did it. I recommend Raising Cain to anybody who's into the slasher horror film genre, especially if you're a John Lithgow fan. I love John Lithgow. I think he's a great actor. But you had just recently seen The Thing.
I'm not done with High Tension.
Oh, okay.
We'll get to the thing. But no, the other main thing that I really liked about High Tension, of course we discussed a lot because it was a horror film class and we would break it down. But
break it down.
The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the chainsaw used was the standard chainsaw, which is a phallic type object. In High Tension, so you've got this female killer, serial killer, with a male split persona, but she ends up using a yonic chainsaw.
Yes.
So it's a very feminine chainsaw. And one thing I didn't know, fun fact, the scene where she's got it through the windshield of the car, and like that was literally like that's the reason why the guy's hands were back was because it was a real chainsaw, and they just put a little plate on his chest.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, like he's got a real chainsaw like coming straight at him, like, and so if you watch, you're just like, why would you just like sit here with your hands behind you? Oh, because that's a real fucking chainsaw. Like, oh snap. But
she also used a 2x4 covered with barbed wire.
Yes, that was amazing. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, so there was the element of male and female.
Yes.
In the
I mean, they used both, but that was, I mean, I can't think of another horror film where they had a character using a feminine type instrument to kill with. In that big of an instrument. I mean, like you could argue all the different kinds, but I mean, like this is like, they could have used a standard chainsaw, but they took it a step further and said, let's use a feminine chainsaw essentially would be what it would
Something that's not so phallic looking.
Exactly.
But yeah, I saw High Tension when I saw the preview for it. I think I saw the preview for it the first time when I watched Night Watch.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, I gotta check this film out.
It's a good, like I said, it's a good film. It was well shot. It was well written. I just, that giving it away at the beginning, I was like, I'm going to kill you.
It just added to
But a lot of people probably, I mean, like, the reason why my class got it is because we had just spent, I mean, like, this is a full semester-long class of breaking down all the aspects of horror films and where they come from and the philosophy. So we might have picked it up because of what the environment that we were in, and we were watching this film going, okay, well, we're gonna have it, we're gonna have to write an essay on it, or there's gonna be a quiz, that kind of thing. So more than likely, we were looking so much into it that we caught it. Mm-hmm. But we were all just like, I mean, there was a loud groan in the entire class, like 20-something people. We were just like, because we're like, now we know how it ends.
Well, it's like the ending where she didn't know the person that she was obsessed with was beyond the other door. And she tried to reach for her because she loved her. Mm-hmm. And I'm just going, bitch is crazy. Oh, wait a minute. Another ammunition for all bitches are crazy. Everybody missed that point. It's a chick who's in love with another chick who's killing like a man.
Well, isn't it one of the scenes where she's got the metal, was it a metal rod that she jams into her chest? Mm-hmm. And the victim essentially is on the ground with she's stabbed essentially, or impaled. Thank you. The crazy chick that's also the serial killer, and the crazy chick is still going like, I love you, blah blah blah, like all that. And I was just like, holy shit. Yeah. I'd be like, what stops you?
Yeah. Several bullets in the brain.
But yes, I did recently watch The Thing.
John Carpenter's The Thing.
Getting a lot into. I've been recently getting into John Carpenter's films as a whole, thanks to watching Carnival with Adrienne Barbeau. Yes, she was in a lot of his films, so I started checking out her work, and in doing so, started noticing that I really like John Carpenter's work as well. And so I've seen the Fog, which I thought was good. I really liked The Fog. But then I watched The Thing this week. And, oh my God, is that amazing?
I get a damn near angry text from her within the first 20 minutes of the film. She goes, "They're killing puppies!" I'm like, I started snickering.
You did, and then you called me up and was just like, "Oh, by the way, here's how it goes. So you've got more to come." And then they do this, and then they do that, and just by the way, oh my God! So that was interesting.
I like that Wilford Brimley was in it.
Diabetes.
Yeah.
Diabetes.
There's an internet meme for diabetes spelled
Diabetes.
No, TUS is how they spell it.
A lot of people.
Oh, that's how they spell
it. Because he's got that fucking epic mustache on there.
Yeah.
So there's just macros throughout the internet of this guy with the epic mustache from the diabetes commercials, with just the caption of diabetes.
Yeah.
So I just was like, oh shit.
Now bear in mind, for those that are not in the know, The Thing is actually a remake of The Thing from Outer Space.
Yes.
Which is around Fred's time.
Yeah.
With, oh God, who was in that film?
Shit, I don't know. I mean, I know Michael Rennie was in The Day the Earth Stood Still, the original version, the one that I would pay attention to.
But with the Thing from Outer Space did not follow the short story like John Carpenter's version did. In the end of The Thing from Outer Space, the Thing was actually like a Frankenstein, Boris Karloff type monster that they electrocuted to kill. Mm. That's not how it ended in the short story. The short story was that this thing consumed you and looked and talked and thought just like you, and the whole premise of the story was you didn't know who was the thing. So it not only dealt with an alien presence that killed you while it consumed you, you dealt with the unknown and the paranoia of who
not
was
knowing
what.
Who it is.
Exactly. And with John Carpenter's version, which came out in '82, mm-hmm. which had some baller special effects for that time.
They were baller.
It was just the way the film was shot. What I liked about the film was the whole issue of paranoia of, are you who you say you are?
And not knowing.
And not know it. And is the person you're talking to the same thing? Is it the thing, or is it actually somebody you're talking to that's actually you've known?
Maybe I should watch that. Then.
It is a great movie.
Real quick, it's actually the original film that was released in 1951 was called The Thing from Another World.
I'm sorry, The Thing from Another World.
And it starred Kenneth Tobey, Margaret Sheridan, Robert Cornthwaite, and Douglas Spencer.
Douglas Spencer.
And James Arness appeared
Yes.
as the Thing.
Yes.
Difficult to recognize in costume and makeup.
Right.
As
And it's
a
based off the short story Who Goes There?
as a side, trip slightly, the TV shows that I was most interested in before Star Trek came into fruition or whatever was The Twilight Zone and
Yes.
Outer Limits, the original Outer
Yes.
Limits. Thank you. And,
Awesome.
And then after The Twilight Zone, Rod Serling did something called Night Gallery, which
Yes.
was also interesting.
I also liked.
I've watched some of the original Twilight Zone.
Yes.
Dude,
Yeah.
years later, I'm still just like, holy
Yes.
shit.
Yes.
I think it was one where like their two soldiers somehow end up in an apocalyptic wasteland.
Yes. Yes.
Oh my god, that would fuck with my head.
There was one with Burgess Meredith.
Yeah. Oh,
That was a great
in my
one.
opinion, that one
is
is
the
the
best
best one
one.
I've ever seen.
He's bugged by other people. All he wants to do is sit down and read his paper. He wants to put his glasses on, read
It
the
reads
paper.
paper.
And he finally gets his wish that everybody's dead.
Because the apocalypse.
Because the
nuclear
apocalypse actually gets to
has
sit
happened.
down, and when he sits down, he realizes his glasses are broken. He can't read his paper.
Yeah.
So now he's
that's-
stuck forever in that hell.
Yeah. So, and Burgess Meredith he's got that voice. I loved him. I mean, my
He's
first.
not gonna have a spare pair of reading glasses. I mean, really.
But
Bitch carries
I also
paper.
liked to know it was in the early
Be
2000s,
careful.
2001, 2002, 2003. They came out with Perversions of Science, which was a new version of the Twilight Zone meets the Outer Limits. And the first episode had William Shatner, and he played a nut. I believe the man was insane.
Oh, if you didn't believe he was a good actor in the Twilight Zone where he's out on the wing.
Yes, where John Lithgow reprised that role in the movie.
I mean, not where he wasn't out on the wing. He was in the plane looking at it.
Looking at the gremlin.
Yeah.
What is has either of you two seen? I was recommended this by Netflix. It's called Visiting Hours. It's an old school horror film, but it's got William Shatner in it. So I was just like,
Really?
I haven't
William Shatner
like
did
you,
quite a
and I'm
few.
kind of
Was it
like,
King
I
of
don't
the
know.
Spiders?
I don't know.
Yeah, he's been in a few horror films.
Mm-hmm. But the thing, going back to the Thing, the John Carpenter's 1982 film, it was just an amazing film. The way that it was directed, the way that it was adapted. I haven't read the original story, but the way that the story went in this film I felt really well done. And then we were talking about how aren't they trying to remake it?
Yes, that's right.
And how I don't think that it's not going to be well done because nowadays we all do everything in CGI. And what made the special effects so creepy in this original film was you knew that it was animatronic, but you're looking and you're just like, when you film it, it's a 3D object that you're filming. And it's a lot different from when you CGI something in there digitally. I mean, that's a reason why a lot of CGI looks like shit is because they don't model it correctly. So you're looking at it going, the lighting's all off. And I can tell that you just put that in there, like poorly photoshopped pictures.
Now that you
obvious.
mentioned that, there's a movie that's coming out, I guess, I'm not sure when, that you and I were talking about. I'm a space geek as far as actual stuff, and so that's why I'm interested. But it's a horror movie called Apollo 18.
Cannot wait.
Now, technically, Apollo
heard of this
18 actually did occur, but they didn't call it that. But anyway, it doesn't matter. As far as
Based on real events that they decided to put a horror spin on it. Kind of like Transformers 3, which, by the way, I cannot understand why it made so much money. Transformers 3, where there's 21 minutes of blackout with Apollo 11, right?
What you mean?
When they landed on the moon.
Not that I'm aware of.
There was they took some blackout time in the film where they found the Ark from the Transformers.
Yeah, that part's a story.
That part's the story, but it was supposed to be that's why they went to the moon.
Oh, okay.
And that Kennedy knew about it and everything like that. And I'm just going, okay, that's interesting. I like that idea. Well, Apollo 18 takes a very similar stance to where it's an actual space program flight that actually happened, but the film is supposed to be the real thing that happened.
And it has a horse spin.
And it has a horse
That's
spin.
interesting.
And
So I'm really
I'm
interested
curious.
in seeing that.
Now, the thing of
I'm
it is,
curious.
though, as far as your comment about CGI, if they use that in that movie, I'm gonna go close, because I mean I have, of course, footage of them actually doing all that stuff. So
Right.
if you see the actual cleaned up footage and then you see somebody CGIing, it's like, well, that's cute, but that's
You might actually like Transformers 3 for that aspect. They actually took the actual footage and cleaned it up for the film because Michael Bay doesn't make movies. He makes 2-hour car commercials
With explosions.
with explosions and stuff like that. So what they actually did is
major.
they took scenes. They kind of did what Forrest Gump had done, where they actually took actual archive footage and inserted Forrest Gump into it. They didn't do so much with the characters this time. What they did is they added dialogue. So they cleaned up the interview with Kennedy in the Oval Office talking about going to the moon,
right.
and they added dialogue of why they should, and they kept Kennedy's dialogue of we need to go to the moon. Then they took the flight and landing footage from Apollo 11, and they cleaned it up for the film. And they kind of like how they did with Star Trek with Deep Space Nine, where they went back in time to the Tribbles, and you saw the new Enterprise.
Yes.
That's exactly what they did with Transformers 3. So you might actually like it for that particular special effect
Part
that
of
they did.
it.
But
And-
I watched the film going, and plus Leonard Nimoy's in it, and I'm just going, I don't understand why this movie made so much money. I really don't.
Yeah, when it comes to, as far as horror movies,
Phantasm.
what's
I
the
didn't
one
even
with
watch
all
that
the
one.
what's the one with all the spikes in it? Oh, Hellraiser.
Hellraiser, Pinhead.
And
God.
Clive Barker's a very disturbed man.
I will tell. Like, look, I
and Candyman.
have seen the
Holy
Hell. I
shit,
watched the
that's
Hellraiser films. Growing up, my mother would bring home horror films. So like 7 years old and watching Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
You know, Halloween films. You know, that kind of thing. And you know, say what you will about a mother showing those to her kids, but I mean, what she did that a lot of parents don't do is she made sure that we understood
Yes,
that it was a
it's
movie.
all fake.
Yeah.
It's all fake. It's fantasy. It's imagination. So that's why, I mean,
I
That's why
don't,
you can
I
watch
don't believe
those
violent
and
films
do that.
and violent video games causes crime. I don't.
I don't either.
It's a choice.
I think if they do, it's because the parents didn't explain to the kids it's not real.
Yeah.
It's not real life. It's fantasy. But, you know, the Hellraiser films,
Now
I think it's
figure out what
Hellraiser
causes
5.
crackheads.
It's the one where the two police officers get their faces smushed together.
That would be Hellraiser 4.
Hellraiser 4. I watched that one at age 12.
Mm-hmm.
I got to the
Do
part.
I look like
with the-
somebody who gives a shit what God thinks? I'm like,
I
damn!
got to the part where the two police officers get their faces smushed together.
Yeah,
And
because they were
I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
And I walked out the room. And I didn't watch horror films for like a good year. Like it fucked me up. But no, the Hellraiser series, so it just fucks you up.
I liked the story of Hellraiser 5, but I hate the fact that you only saw Pinhead for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, Pinhead is just such an epic character. He's like Freddy Krueger.
We used to
You
have
can't-
arguments in high school if you took all the horror film villains who would be standing at the end, and I always said Pinhead.
Is that why fucking, what is it, Freddy vs. Jason came out? Why Aliens vs. Predator came
Yes.
out? Is because of people from your generation
People
going,
from my gen-
what would happen if?
I would've- and you know
Fuck
what?
you guys.
I hate that Sam Raimi decided to say no to the sequel to Freddy vs. Jason because it was supposed to be Freddy vs. Jason vs. Ash. And it would have been the shit. I've got the comic book. The comic book is awesome. And I'm like, this would have been the shit had it been a film.
Yeah,
But
but who
they're
would
like-
be directing the film?
They didn't get that far because, I mean, Sam Raimi even said in an interview where, you know, we thought about it for about 30 seconds. And they were like, no.
I
don't
yeah,
wanna
but see,
cheapen the
Freddy and Jason, I mean, they're in the same horror genre.
They're in the same
They're
universe.
the same, yeah. They're the same type of killer, where it's just like a serial killer. They're quote unquote monsters.
They're dead.
Yeah, you know. I mean, Ash is to me too different of a character,
The Evil Dead.
which is interesting, and yet at the same time
It
may not
may
really
not
add
have
up.
worked, but the comic book made it look like it could have worked.
Which is awesome. I would like to.
But
read
I
that
also
comic
think
book.
that they're remaking. Bruce Campbell actually posted on his Twitter account that there is an official go to remake The Evil Dead, and I'm not against female actresses, but if you look back at your horror film genres, the hero was generally a female, and Wes Craven was a master of doing it. Look at the Scream films,
Yeah.
Nightmare on Elm Street films, even his Deadeye film was the Red Eye film with what's his name that played the Scarecrow in the Christopher Nolan Batman films. where he was trying to kill this chick that was on the red-eye flight. Most of his heroes are female. I've got no problem with that. But what the Evil Dead had done was that they had decided to take away from that formula and try to put a guy in it, and it worked. It's one of the few times it worked.
Yes.
If they're going to remake it, Ash needs to be a guy, because there's been rumors for the last 10 years that if they ever did remake it, it would go from Ash to Ashley.
No.
Yes.
First of all, Ashley's a horrible name.
Well, technically, Bruce
For a
Ashley-
horror movie? Yeah.
Or, like,
well,
really,
technically,
like-
that's Ash's real name is Ashley. They just called him Ash. But they were actually talking about having a female do the role instead of a guy, and I'm like, it won't work.
It's not. That's not a remake. It's a
reimagination.
Exactly.
This is what they did to Battlestar. So if they do decide to do it, and go
Check
to
us out on bdrrocksonline.com. Bam in your face, fucking feed.
But
I will know the website by the end of it today.
but
One thing's
they,
for
they've also
sure,
talked
Cal
about
will never forget.
they also talked about remaking Phantasm, and I know you haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it
It
yet.
is a great film.
I
But
haven't
it's one of
seen
those
it
classics because is it Argento that directed that film?
I haven't seen it yet.
I can't remember.
What? Dude, that was like 1974.
I have it in my queue. Hello, Radioland.
All four Phantasm
Hello.
films.
I'm back to get all close to you.
Watch them.
Yeah.
Let me see.
I looked it up. I got my laptop right here.
Well, I'm seeing if I have all four of them in my queue.
Oh, well, I will look at it at imdb.com.
Oh, there's only Phantasm and Phantasm 4.
I've got Phantasm and Phantasm 2 at my house. 1979, excuse me.
No, it was directed by Don Coscarelli.
Yeah, he's an Italian.
Okay, that's why I got him confused with Argento.
Is he without papers, though?
He is not a wop.
But you got Angus Grimm in the film, who plays the tall man. And he also narrated...
Is he very tall?
He's very tall. He's like 7 feet tall.
Yeah, he's tall.
He also narrated the intro to Wishmaster. And a lot of people were sitting there talking about, oh, the tall man, Jason, and Freddy are all going to be in this one film that was done by Wes Craven. But they didn't realize that King Hodder played a security guard, and Freddy Krueger played an antiques collector. Angus Grimm was just the narrator. So a lot of people hated it because they weren't in the film as they wanted to be. I'm like, the Wishmaster series, I liked the first two. The first two were pretty good. Warlock is another one with Julian Sands.
That is another series that I have in my queue that I haven't watched yet, but I want to.
In the third one, the Warlock.
Because I think Julian Sands is a really great actor.
Julian Sands. The third one was actually the same. It was the bad guy from Passenger 57, which he did a decent job in Warlock 3. I actually liked all three films.
His name is Bruce Payne.
Who played Passenger 57?
Who's in Warlock 3.
Yeah.
Bruce Payne.
He's a decent actor. He plays the villain very well. The third one wasn't as campy as the first two. The first two were very campy horror films. That's leads me to my rant on horror films. There's a reason why horror films are never ever considered for Oscar nominations. It's because they're never filmed with the seriousness that they need to be filmed with. They're usually very campy. They're very bad special effects, or it's very bad writing, and there are very few exceptions. Evil Dead is an exception. Phantasm is an exception. The first Exorcist is an exception. But they're recognized, like The Exorcist has always been recognized as one of the most groundbreaking horror films of all time, but it never got an Oscar. Ever. And some of the best special effects I've ever seen came out of a horror film.
Yep.
As a matter of fact...
Horror or sci-fi. Don't forget sci-fi films.
Well, that leads to the other argument. Event Horizon was a great horror sci-fi crossover.
Yep.
The Thing is a great horror sci-fi crossover. However, you could get into a debate on if Aliens is a straight-up sci-fi or is it a crossover.
Yeah, no.
But nobody ever suggests the Predator series as a crossover.
Yeah, it's considered straight sci-fi.
Because of the way they're killed.
Yes.
That is the only reason why it's never considered a crossover.
Yeah.
Alien, because of the way the people died, is considered a horror sci-fi crossover.
And the aliens are presented as monsters.
Yes.
they're, I mean, like with Predator, it's just kind of, it's a
hunt.
Yeah.
With very intelligent bipedal creatures.
Yes.
To
Whereas
the point where
aliens are like,
to the point where actually some of the predators actually respected their prey. Arnold Schwarzenegger's character, Dan Glover's character, and Adrian Brody's character in Predators, because they're like, well, you actually posed, you could be both prey and predator.
Right.
Now, when you saw the Aliens versus Predators, the first one, the AVP, first one, I hated it with the exception of two things. The Predator actually recognized human beings as equals halfway through the film. Now, I always thought the facehugger was creepy as fuck. Thank you, Ridley Scott.
God.
But they made it creepier in AVP.
Did they? I haven't seen AVP.
Because they slowed it down.
No.
You actually see it pop out, and they did that whole Matrix kind of thing, and slow motion of going, oh, they just made it creepier. That was the only thing that made the film only redeeming quality of the film, was they made the facehuggers in slow motion.
Wow.
But the Alien series,
I loved all four of them.
I haven't seen the fourth one yet, but I love the first three.
I actually like the fact. I mean, plus you got the Brits in there with that quippy humor that they have, where they're trying to get the bull. It's a crossbreed because it burst out of a dog, so they called it the bulldog alien. Where they're trying to pincer move it into a particular type of tunnel so they can go and try to capture it.
Yeah.
And one of the guys, this thing is really pissed off. And I'm like, you fucking think? I like the prison. I like the prison aspect, where a lot of people like it was the worst of the four films. I'm like, no, I actually like the idea that it's not on some abandoned world. I liked. Plus, Ian Holm was in the first one. And I love Ian Holm. Ever since I saw Time Bandits, I loved Ian Holm. I loved him in The Fifth Element.
Yeah.
And he played this. He played his character well in the first Alien, where he had no emotion because he was an android.
Yeah.
But when you got Lance Herkinson in it playing Bishop, you liked him for a different reason, because he was an upgrade.
Yeah.
And he showed emotion to try to relate to the other people.
Yes.
Until he met Ripley, who still remembered what Ian Holm had done and had a prejudice against Bishop. Until Bishop was able to convince her at the end of the second film that he was with her on her side. He wasn't like the old one.
Right.
And then she actually felt bad when she went back to the wreckage in the third film, where she literally had to reactivate his broken body. And he even said, "Can you just let me go? It hurts." And she felt bad. So she did. She let him go. And then the creator of the Bishop series actually meets her at the end of the film when she realized she's impregnated. And he's like, the company sent me because I'm a familiar face. But he wasn't Bishop. He was actually part of the company, which is why she jumped.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. And then you get to Alien 4. It had Brad Dourif in it. Brad motherfucking Dourif. And I'm like, fuck yeah, this is going to be a great film. And then it had Ron Perlman in it. And then it had, what's his name that played in, Michael, what, played the bad guy in The Crow.
I haven't seen The Crow. I'm sorry, I grew up with too many goth kids that were so obsessed with that movie, it would just sicken me to the point where I don't want to watch it.
I was curious with Alien Resurrection because it had Winona Ryder in it. I wasn't a big Winona Ryder fan. This was in '97, so this
careful, she'll steal your heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, or either that, or you'll start calling her
Michael Wincott.
That was bad, by the way.
Michael Wincott. He's got that deep gunslinger type Clint Eastwood voice.
Yeah, you need to put that in every once in a while.
And hey, look, one fire at a fucking time. I'm trying to make sure that Calv understands I'm plugging the goddamn website.
Which one? You mean www.bdrrocksonline.com?
Or is it www.bdrrocksonline.com?
.com, right next to
.com.
Oh dear God, I think you just had a seizure.
I think so.
I did. I liked all four Alien films. And Ridley Scott's talking about making a prequel, and I cannot wait to see how. And it's actually Ridley Scott doing it. I cannot wait.
By the way, why does it keep asking me to check in?
I have no idea, because you're using a Steve Jobs product.
But if I do, is it going to mention this specific piece of property?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm not doing that.
Yes.
I don't need people knowing.
Oh, no.
Will you
That's
quit
why I
playing with
wouldn't
your
do it.
phone, first of all?
So that's why I love my
Clearly a
Droid. It
weeb.
doesn't ask me to sign into particular people's Wi-Fi's. It just automatically does it.
Oh, that's nice.
Let's see. Okay. I liked the Creepshow series. I thought it was funny.
Did you watch the movie?
I have Creepshow 1 and Creepshow 2. I haven't
Leslie
seen 3
Nielsen
yet.
plays the villain in the first film
Mm-hmm.
with Ted Danson as one of the victims, so I thought that was great. It's also got Adrienne Barbeau in it.
Yes. Let's see. Day of the Dead.
Good old Adrienne Barbeau.
The original.
Yes.
Oh,
I'm not a big George A. Romero fan.
Let me get back. Let me step back for this Romero thing. I like Romero's films. I'm not gonna lie. I like his films, not the remakes that they did.
See, I like
One of my favorite Romero film is actually Dawn of the Dead, where they're in the mall.
But see, I liked.
That's my favorite Romero film.
I liked the remake of Dawn of the Dead.
I hate the remake of Dawn of the Dead.
I love the remake.
They just talk about fucking shit up left and right. Not a goddamn thing was done right in that film. I'm sorry.
Oh, come on.
I'm sorry. If you are reanimated flesh, you cannot run marathons.
Come on.
And I loved in Diary. Did you see Diary of the Dead?
I saw Diary of the Dead.
I love the scene in Diary of the Dead where it's towards the end and the kid was supposed to be playing a mummy and it's at the end he ends up becoming a zombie and the kids film it and he's like, I told you they moved slow, and I was like, yeah, if you're a dead body, it's come back to you can't
But
run
you
a
like
fucking
28
marathon.
Days Later.
But that's technically not. It's not the same type of. In that, it was a virus that was an infection. In this one, you're literally a reanimated. In Dawn of the Dead, a reanimated corpse.
But you have to admit that in the remake, when they're going down A-teaming the shuttles, and Dick Cheese comes out with the lounge version of Down with the Sickness, that was fucking funny.
That was funny. I admit it. It was funny, and it did have its moments. But overall, I mean, you lost me in the first fucking scene where you've got the goddamn marathon running zombie. Like, what is that shit?
True.
It's just shit. That's what it was. That's made me so mad.
Zombie films are hit and miss with me. They've got to be done a particular way for me to enjoy them because they've been done so much.
They have, and that's like Dawn of the Dead is my favorite Romero film. I mean, like I still liked Land of the Dead, Diary of the Dead, Day of the Dead.
There's Platoon of the Dead.
Is there?
It's not a Romero film though. But it's called Platoon
I
of the
find
Dead.
it interesting with zombies because we talk about how there's zombies that eat brains and then there's zombies that eat flesh.
Yes.
And it's fascinating.
One of my favorite.
To see which one people pick when they make a new zombie film.
But my favorite zombie film is probably Dead Snow.
Dead Snow.
That was a great movie.
Was great. Was it Norwegian?
I believe it was Swedish.
Swedish? I got it on my list.
I've got it on DVD. That movie was fucking great, both in English and its original language. I was just like, fuck yes! And I love the whole Ode to Joy Beethoven thing where they're sitting there trying to. But
and it's Norway, by the way.
Norway, okay.
Sweden is Let the Right One In, which is another great film that I've talked
What
about.
I liked about Dead Snow was that they got the Nazi uniforms spot the fuck on.
Yep.
And the leader just comes out like his dick is 10 fucking inches long, that it weighs 40 fucking pounds, and he's a fucking pimp.
Yeah.
And he's walking out and he's got no lips. And he's just looking at you like, you're on my playground now. And it was just great the way they did it. And if you noticed, the guy that created the film was an Evil Dead fan.
I was going to say, the only thing that I didn't like about it was there were so much fucking Evil Dead references. I was like, by like the 20th one, I was like, dude,
They even
we got it.
They even mentioned it in dialogue.
Got it. And like I said, by like the 20th one, I was like, all right, you know what? We got it. Can we move on? Can you quote? I mean, there's plenty of other horror films that you can quote. That's why I love, by the way, Shaun of the Dead.
Shaun of the Dead was great.
Because, and I love watching it.
I'd like to see that.
It's a great film, and if you watch it, if you have the DVD, you can have the little, it's like a little thing that pops up at the bottom of the screen that says when there's a reference being made. Mm-hmm. And I got all the references, but like two the first time when I watched the film, and it literally pulls from all horror films. It's just a great collection. It's a great, intertextuality is the word, where everything's been done, so what do? You make something that's quote-unquote new, but is really just references to things that have already been made, done. And it's just a great example of intertextuality. Whether or not you believe in that, again, intertextuality.
That's neat.
Where everything's been said and done before. Nothing that you can say or do is quote-unquote new, because somebody's already thought of it and already done it. So what do you do?
That's one of the discussions I've had with your brother is that...
You throw everything together and it's like a puzzle. You just make it...
Yeah. it's one of the arguments, not arguments, but discussions I had with your brother about the side project he was talking about doing was that as a writer, it's hard to come up with a new idea because everything's been done. It's my job as a writer to try to put a new spin on something that's already been done. That's easier said than done because especially with the information age, you can, I mean, literally, I do more research than writing because I don't want somebody. George Lucas pissed me off at this because he didn't borrow, he stole. And I don't want to be accused 20 years after making something big and famous where people go back, oh, wait a minute, he stole that. I don't want to be accused of theft. So I'm doing more research to make sure my idea hasn't been done, my line hasn't been done, my character's name or my character's profession or the position he's in hasn't been done.
Unless it's a direct reference that you want to create.
And I don't want to do direct references unless it's dialogue. Like I got a Harry Potter type story to where they make reference to Evil Dead. Where one of my characters, there are 3 friends, 2 guys, 1 girl.
1 cup.
Yeah. And the bad boy of the 3 finally wakes up from their altercation with one of the antagonists, and the friend pulls him up by his hand and says, "Welcome back to the land of the living," which was a direct reference to their favorite film, which I actually plugged that in.
Yeah.
But it's gotten to the point where, it's more research than anything. I don't have anybody to do. I mean, Stephen King has somebody he pays. Robin Firth is a great researcher. She's one of the reasons why we have the post Dark Tower books and references and stuff like that outside the 7 books that King had written. Yeah. She's also one of the creative consultants of the comic book you and I are reading.
Yeah.
She also did the Concordance volumes 1 and 2. I have so many reference books on the Dark Tower series. I've got a book called Stephen King's Magnus Opus where they actually literally break it down, all 7 books.
Break it down, yeah.
It's the same thing with the Dune books. I actually have a very little-known, out-of-print book called the Dune Encyclopedia that was not endorsed by Frank Herbert. He signed it, said it was very entertaining, but it doesn't go necessarily with the canon. But he wasn't finished with the canon by the time this guy had written the book. It's a collector's item if you can find it in hardback because it's out of print.
Yeah.
The cheapest I ever found it in hardback was $700. I'm not paying $700 for a book. I've got 3 paperback copies of it. One, literally the pages are coming out. It's still old. And the other 2 are later pressings with the same cover. But with going back to the horror films, if I had to pick my top 5 horror films, Evil Dead would be up there, The Thing would be up there, Phantasm. I would be very hard pressed to find 5.
5, like
all-time best horror films ever. I would be very hard pressed to find 5. I mean, with Texas Chainsaw Massacre,
hard to please.
Well, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, I swore off chili for 10 years because I'm like, oh no, oh fuck, I'm not touching chili. No, it took me 10 years to touch chili again.
With the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the first one, the original one. Let's see why they had to remake it. With the original one, it really reiterated the fact that the opening scene is so important to a film. I'm wondering what you're doing. You have a look on your face. But because the way that it opens is just so, oh my god.
Is that the one where the chick tries to escape? And they're chasing her, and Leatherface is chasing her down? Or is that the second one? No, the second one is where they're chasing guys in the car on the bridge. It's a radio station.
They made several.
I'm talking about the original.
The original first one, yes, it ends with Leatherface chasing the girl, and she ends up jumping in a pickup truck, and the pickup truck speeds off.
Swirling around the chainsaw.
Swinging around, which, I mean, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I mean, like, I like it for what it is. I respect it for what it is.
Loosely based on true events.
It's not my favorite horror film, but I love the way that it opens because it's, the credits are rolling, it's black, if I remember correctly. Haven't seen it in a hot minute. But it's the only sound that you get is the sound from the flash when they take the picture, and that's when you see the image of what was left over from the horrific site or whatever. Was the flash comes up and then it shows
I kind of liked.
And I like how it was interesting how it just all you heard was the noise and all you saw, and then it would go away. It's just as though you were the one taking the picture.
Well, with the noise aspect of it, I actually kind of like that. This is the only redeeming part that I thought of was the Next Generation Texas Chainsaw Massacre with Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah.
Was the hydraulic brace that he had, and he's chasing Renelle Zellweger, and all you hear is Zellweger. You hear step hydraulic, step hydraulic. You don't necessarily see him. That made that creepy.
Yeah.
But the movie sucks. As far as horror films itself, the movie sucked. I didn't particularly care for it.
Which movie?
Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation.
Oh.
They made Leatherface into a transvestite. That's where I drew the line. I was like, I'm done.
Yep.
I am done.
Well, that's Hollywood just going one of those steps too far.
Hollywood did the same thing with the Halloween films.
Oh God.
There's like, what, 7 films now?
Yeah.
7 or 8 films?
Yeah, the first one was good. Yeah, I'm done.
I'm curious
I like the
to
second
see...
one. The third one had nothing to do with my...
www.bdrrocksonline.com.
Fuck you, she locks up.
Well, because Fred looked like he was about to say it, so I wanted to let Fred do his thing.
Oh, you saw the...
He hasn't been talking because
You saw the
I guess he
stiffening...
got bored.
No, you saw the stiffening posture.
Dear God. But I'm curious to see the Rob Zombie, I guess it'd be a reimagination.
The first one was actually pretty decent.
The only thing I didn't... One thing that we had the thing that we discussed though in the horror film class and why it's a peculiar film was back when Halloween was originally released. There was no explanation as to why he's killing.
No.
There was no explanation as to why he's doing it. You didn't even get none of that shit was there. And apparently what the Rob Zombie remake was I haven't seen it, so I don't really know. But its attempt was to give you any and all explanation as to why or how the monster was created.
Right.
The monster Mike Myers was created. Where all you got in the first film was him as the kid who killed his sister. Was it after she had sex or something like that?
Yes. What I had a problem with the Rob Zombie version was that Michael's sister was Rob's daughter.
Weird.
What? Oh, okay.
Weird.
You saw her topless. You saw her acting out sex, but it wasn't. They weren't doing. You couldn't tell they were actually there was no penetration. But the fact that she was topless and it's Rob's daughter, that's where I was like,
his actual daughter?
His actual daughter in real life.
Yeah, no.
And I'm just going,
Awkward.
Not only awkward, but
with Halloween 3, Season of the Witch had nothing to do with Michael Myers.
No. What's the one where they had the razor blades in the apples?
That was Season of the Witch.
That's the one that fucked me up when I was a kid. I didn't understand it, and I knew as a kid that it had nothing to do with the other films, but the razor blades in the apples.
But the first Halloween?
But with...
First Halloween?
Yeah.
John Carpenter film.
I know. I liked it as a kid. I like it now.
Donald Pleasence.
Wow.
But no, with the Rob Zombie remake that's definitely a more contemporary thing of and you could argue that this goes back to telling the audience everything that they may or may not need to know to enjoy a film is
5-minute attention span.
Giving them why this person does what they do as opposed to wondering or being scared of I don't understand where they're coming from. So it's that's why I haven't seen it yet because I'm like I don't really want to.
Yeah.
I got somebody dinging. I got another person playing with his meat.
Well, you can always ding and play with your meat.
Or I don't know. Let's see.
I'm trying to think of some other good horror films.
Did you ever watch Low?
Not yet.
I fucking told you to watch it like 3 months ago.
Bastard.
You have to give me a ring first before I start actually paying attention and listening to you.
Oh boy.
I also have to start paying attention and listening to you too.
Then, if that's the case, you'd be a bigamist.
How are you going to say something like that when he's got a mouthful of meat?
Or a smallest or something.
Well, let's take a break and look up some movies, and we'll come back and continue this conversation.
Cool.